young, when I was about 19 years old and going to art school. I was dissatisfied with my drawing and my painting. I didn't get, it lacked something. And I suddenly, well, quite suddenly, yes, realized what it was that I was lacking was motion. Peculiarly enough, it wasn't through seeing any animated films, but through seeing the Russian classic silent films by Fedorkin and Eisenstein. They moved me so much. These films, it revealed to me what film could be.
This man is doing something that no one in the world has ever done before. He's writing a film on the piano. Not just the sound, but the picture too. And on that machine behind him, he's photographing the tune he's just written so that we both hear and see the sound. Like Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream, you might say, the eye of man hath not heard, the ear of man hath not seen what his dream was. And so we've called this film, which traces the lifelong progress of this dream, The Eye Hears, the Ear Sees. And here, unfinished, is what the piano and the machine are producing. The sound you see, the picture you hear. It'll be about the 50th animated film in the life of this 55-year-old Scots-born Canadian Norman McLaren. Montreal's skyscrapers poke up from the low banks of the St. Lawrence eye to eye with two little leafy hills, Westmount and Mount Royal. And amongst the trees of Westmount, high over the town, Norman McLaren lives. Every morning he steers his conspicuously small Volkswagen down off the hill and out to the noisy suburbs where the National Film Board of Canada has its headquarters. McLaren's hardly known to the general public, but in the film world his name is legendary. For over 30 years, this gentle and modest man, who would shy at the claim, has been acknowledged as one of the most inventive and original spirits in the cinema. The British filmmaker John Grierson says, if there is such a thing as pure movie, be sure that McLaren has been one of its greatest exponents. It was Grierson who spotted him in 1934 at the Glasgow School of Art and who eventually, in 1941, brought him to Canada.
Just before the outbreak of the war, I emigrated to America. I was feeling I wanted a change and went to live in New York, where I lived for about a couple of years, making films. Then, during the wartime, John Grierson came to Canada to start the National Film Board. And I got a phone call from Ottawa one day saying, come up to Canada and make films for us. And John Grierson came to New York and spoke to me about the nature of the job and that I'd be free to do what I wanted. And he had an overall picture of the Film Board's function. It was making a great lot of very functional documentary films, and it needed a variety in its programming, a little lightness and fantasy. And so that's where he saw me fitting in. That's why he said, you know, come and do what you want.
Very functional, says McLaren, of the Film Board's output. And indeed the board's brief, first of all, was to show Canada to the Canadians. Their films needed to be simply informative, reflecting the variety of the country, its natural wonders, industrial marvels, from the sophisticated to the most primitive, from cowboys to Eskimos. Into this earnest and useful atmosphere, with lightness and fantasy, Then came McLaren with his happy band of animators.
More and you're back to the wall, and over the left with the corners all. Right hand to your partner, grand chain, go right, go left. Go right to the buggy, left to the wheel, go all the way round on the ball of your heel. Put your wooden leg up and your cork one down. Hurry up, girl, you'll never get drowned.
The board told McLaren to do what he wanted, but it was wartime and he wanted to be functional. One of the first animated films he did there was a plea for war savings called Hen Hop. Now, Hen Hop is characteristic of McLaren's originality. Most animated films are done by laboriously drawing minutely changing pictures on large sheets of celluloid and then photographing them one by one. McLaren cut through all that by drawing his hens directly onto the film frame, a piece of celluloid about 3/4 of an inch square, and so he was bypassing the camera altogether.
People sometimes ask me how I managed to get the drawing in the same place one after the other. I had a machine. It's a wooden table with a strip of film and a light behind it. Oh dear. Well, you see what happens there. The pen has blobbed.
McLaren's characteristic little bird, cheery and inquisitive, has survived the years, although McLaren doesn't draw much on film these days.
The film here has a grid, not the film I'm drawing on, because what I'm drawing on slides above the grid. The grid is underneath, and that acts as a reference. It shows me where to do the next drawing.
McLaren has been in poor health recently, but he doesn't stop working. Even these short films, only minutes long, sometimes take as much as a year to make.
And so I would draw one frame, or a part of a frame, and maybe not the whole image, but the most important moving part first. And I would go on from frame to frame, always changing.
Always changing. These two aspects of animation are what have sustained McLaren's interest and inventiveness over 30 years. The first of making inanimate objects appear to move, and the second of transforming one object by magic license into another. In other words, metamorphosis.
The first decade of this century, the animators metamorphosed shapes. Emile Cole in Drame chez les Fantoches, for instance, made wonderful metamorphoses of one shape into another, and one shape had relationship to another, meaning a lot of the animation that the general public knows, such as Disney's animation, didn't use metamorphosis. It used a character which remained the same.